If it had not been for Jesus. Forget last week, you barely made that last night. If it had not been for Jesus. Open your Bibles with me, the book of Hebrews, the 13th chapter, verse 5 through verse number 9. And because Jesus has been so good to us, I'm praying that He open up our hearts, that He move upon our understanding, that He saturate this atmosphere with His presence, that whatever we need, He does. Whatever we need moved, we need added, He'll add it. And whatever we need taken away, He'll take it away. Jesus, have your way in this place. That we might begin to break up the fallow ground until He rain down righteous. Does anybody need Him? Is anybody hungry for Him? Matter of fact, not only do I know what I need, I know some things I don't need. I don't need no more complaining. I don't need no more worrying. I don't need no more crying. But I know I need Jesus. Hebrews the 13th chapter, verse number 5 through verse number 9. Here's what the Bible reads. Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as ye have. For He hath said, I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee. So that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper, and I will not fear what man shall do unto me. Remember them which have the rule over you, who have spoken unto you the word of God, whose faith follow, considering the end of their conversation. Jesus Christ the same yesterday and today and forever. Be not carried away with divers and strange doctrine, for it is good that the heart be established with grace, which have not profited them that have been occupied therein. Thank you, Jesus. If you would turn someone near to you and just help me out and tell them integrity in Jesus. Integrity in Jesus. Integrity in Jesus. Listen, here's what we have. We can diagnose our situation or the day that we live in, our present day. The Bible said it is uncertain times. That you live in a period of uncertainty. What I'm saying is that if you were to just look out into the earth realm, into this atmosphere you live in, that means anything can happen. That you cannot put faith in uncertainty. Because anything can happen. That's why when somebody's asking you about what it is that's going on in your world, you cannot have a definitive answer for them based on what you see in the world, because anything can happen. Because there is an uncertainty from day to day, because that's what the world is built up on. And when there is an uncertainty, sometimes the uncertainty has a way of controlling what you do and think. And so that's why the Bible said be no longer tossed to and fro by, because we used to live under uncertainty, but now listen to what we are. We're rooted and grounded in faith. That we no longer are tossed to and fro in uncertainty, because that's what's in the world. Now I'm in Jesus. And Jesus said you can be of good cheer because He's already overcome the world. What I'm telling you is that it's easy to go from mood change to mood change, and worry to worry, and trouble to trouble when you're in uncertainty. But we're not called to live like that. The Bible said we move from faith to faith. It's a whole nother understanding that we don't live in uncertainty anymore. Now we live in the grace of Jesus. And so what happens is that not only this, you'll notice it in your brother, and you'll notice it among your family, that uncertainty will change your conversation. Oh my goodness, we'll shout one day and cry all the next day. It's nothing like uncertainty. All it takes is one phone call, one doctor visit, one bad note, one bad roll of the eye, one bad word mentioned, one evil said, and all of a sudden your understanding changes. That's right, that's right. It's as if that when this uncertainty hit, the stuff you did believe, you no longer believe anymore. When uncertainty hits, when life hits, when trouble hits, all of a sudden you start changing your mind about stuff. And so what happens to us is we change our mind about stuff, and nobody comes to church and says, I want to confess, I changed my mind. What we do is we change our talk. You'll start talking about how Jesus is your healer. By His stripes you're healed. It's what Jesus who paid it all. But if ever you get enough sickness in uncertainty, sometimes you might change your conversation. And what we give ourselves the privilege of doing is we won't say Jesus is not our healer. We just won't keep saying He is our healer. Oh, y'all to talk back to me right here. And so what you say is, I never said Jesus wasn't my healer, but you didn't say he still is your healer. That maintaining the integrity or consistency, the wholeness or the satisfaction in Jesus, that means that no longer does uncertainty move me, but I'm still satisfied with Jesus. I'm still rooted and grounded by faith. My conversation is not the same, not changed. It's Jesus the same yesterday, today, and forever. Even if I'm in trouble, the same Jesus. Even when I'm sick, the same Jesus. Even when I'm worried, the same Jesus. He said we no longer move like other people are moved, because now we have this faith in who Jesus is. Now we are established by grace. That means not by temporary stuff, but how Jesus satisfies. And so when Paul's going through a condition, when Paul's going through a trouble in his time, Jesus just reminds him, my grace is sufficient unto thee, and my strength is made perfect in your weakness. And he simply reminds him, that's not how you're built. Uncertainty can't move you. You know how from day to day, whether the weather is bad or good, sometimes it can break you down, but established on something else. He reminds Paul, he said, Paul, I didn't build you up like this. You built up on something else. You put together another way. If any man be in Christ, he's a new creature, and former things have passed away. The Bible says that we're peculiar people, that it's no longer like it used to be. Jesus satisfies.
Yes, he does.
So if it is that we're built this way, but we're also set up in uncertainty, that means sometimes you got to move yourself, recenter yourself, remind yourself. Or Paul said, be no longer conformed to this world, but be ye transformed, Romans 12:2, by the renewing of your mind. Sometimes you got to get your mind back together. Sometimes you got to see yourself in yourself and say, I think I'm losing my mind. I need Jesus to work on me. I know it's been too good. I know it kept me too long. That when it hit Paul, Paul got his mind back and said, I'd rather rejoice in my infirmities, in my necessities, and in my distresses, as good as my God is.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever caught yourself going through the depression you've been going through?
Yeah.
I ain't talking about somebody came and grabbed you. I mean, you got a hold of yourself and said, the God I serve is too wonderful, is too great, and is too good to me to allow uncertainty to live in my life. So what happens is that uncertainty will not only change your vantage point, it'll change your view, it'll change your conversation, but it'll also change your mind. What I'm saying is, the devil don't believe it, the world don't believe it, and you can talk yourself out of believing it. Paul said that we talk ourselves sometimes to believing something that we already know by experience. Jesus said, have you not seen, and have you not heard, and do you not remember? Paul said, experience bringeth forth hope, and hope maketh not ashamed. Sometimes we talk ourselves right out of something, and Jesus already did it. Let me give you an example. You're worried about your current sickness. What happened to your last sickness? Oh, won't Jesus do it? What happened to your last trouble? What happened when the last time you spent your last dime? Jesus keeps on keeping you. Paul said, the reason why I can rejoice, because I know his grace abounds toward me. His grace rests upon my life. So that he satisfies me. That every uncertain condition is already met by his grace. It's because of his mercy that we are not consumed. It's satisfied by the grace of Jesus. That's why you can walk around with sickness that should have killed you, yet you're still alive. Are there any witnesses in here? It's satisfied by his grace. So Paul said, now, having an understanding about how good Jesus' grace in my life, he then does something that you and I need to start doing, get his integrity back. He fell down, broke down, he was crying, he was worried, but then he remembered Jesus' grace satisfies his life. He remembered he built up a different way. And so he got his integrity back and said, I can shout over all these things. I can shout while I'm broke. I can shout while I'm worried. I can shout while I'm sick. Because Jesus' grace satisfies my condition. And he said, I got integrity in Jesus. And I'm trying to get you to see that sometimes you just got to be reminded you built up to last. That you're made a different way. So Paul, by experience of living, said, hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common unto man. But God is faithful. and will not suffer. And above that you're able to bear. But with every temptation makes a way for you to escape, that you might be able to handle it. Oh, you ought to tell him, Jesus is so good in my life. Look at what he lets me handle. Look at how he keeps blessing me. Paul said the reason why I can rejoice in my sickness because Jesus let me handle it. The reason why I can rejoice in my trouble because Jesus is allowing me to handle it. The reason why I can praise him in my tribulation because he's allowing me to handle it. This stuff would have killed somebody else, but Jesus is good to me. Somebody else would have lost their mind, but Jesus keeps on blessing me. He keeps allowing me to handle it. So Paul said, this time when I get to church, I ain't shouting about no kind of car, no kind of job. I just want to thank Jesus for all the stuff he allowed me to handle. I went to the doctor and I'm still here. I got a bad diagnosis and I'm still here. There's trouble in my life and I'm still here. Jesus is good to me. He said, look at what he lets me handle. He said that you ought to notice in the end of the conversation, Jesus the same yesterday, today, and forever. See, because we have a way of sometimes having this one that's in the past. He used to. He was your healer. He delivered you before. He kept you before. He saved you before. But he said the same Jesus you had yesterday. Are you with me on this? It's the same one that's keeping you today. All that is experience. That means that you found out it don't matter what the doctor say. Jesus has the final word. He said not only is he going to be like he was yesterday, today, but he's consistent. That you sitting in here Sunday worrying about your Monday, but you have a faithful God. He's consistent. That he does not waver. That he is the same. It's a wonder he said that this has to be then their confession or confession. That he said that this kind of living ought to be mimicked in us one to another. That this ought to be our confession, the same Jesus. That our conversation is no longer with covetousness because we know that Jesus, he is our helper. That we ought to be able to say then the same Jesus. You got 2017 problems and 2009 tried to take your life. The same Jesus took you all the way through 2009, 10, 11. That same Jesus, just like he was yesterday. Sometimes you forget because you have the privilege of hindsight. Sometimes you forget that even in hindsight, you can look back and not even know what it was you thought was going to happen, but somehow Jesus made a way for you. How could you have a plan? You didn't even have an idea, but somehow Jesus made a way for you. Some say while you were trying to figure it out, Jesus had already worked it out. That uncertainty will cause you then to react in a way that is natural instead of a way that is spiritual, because you're built in the wrong thing, because your mind is fixed on the wrong thing, because you're set up the wrong way. So therefore, when you got 5,000 over 5,000 hungry people and all you got is 2 fish and 5 loaves, you'll be uncertain about how to satisfy. That's right. But Jesus always satisfies. Oh, you ought to get that down in your spirit. He always satisfies. Peter said, Lord, send them away. And Jesus said, no, I can't leave until they satisfy. He said, I can't let them go without satisfying. In uncertainty, Peter looked out and said, I don't know what you could possibly do. But the Bible said, listen to this, Jesus already knew what he would do. That means he was never moved into uncertainty. Trying to figure out what you're going to do next. Even when you're worried and hurried and everything is a mess, Jesus never moves into your uncertainty. He's still the same. He's still the same. Even when you're having sleepless nights and you don't know what you're going to do, he's still the same. that what causes you to change is not that you change into what you are. You then begin to remove yourself back into what Jesus called you to be. So when you realize that you can't control people, and people are out in the world 3 in the morning, 6 in the morning, whatever it is, and you can't control them or keep them in safety, that's when you put your trust in Jesus. That he can cover some stuff you can't even cover. That it then makes the uncertain certain, because Jesus now gives us something that the world never could, and that is he promised. That now I live under a promise. The certainty is this: he's already promised. So I don't have to worry about the uncertainty of sickness. Listen to this, get this down in your spirit. The uncertainty of sickness comes with having flesh. And if I have flesh, I can then get sick. But if I do get sick, I got a promise over my life. And if I ever get sick, by Jesus' stripes, I'm already healed. The promise doesn't kick in until you're met with the uncertainty. As soon as you hit the uncertainty, that's when the promise kicks in. That's when the blood covers. Because the grace satisfies the condition. That I got a condition, but it's already satisfied. The need has already been met. The price has already been paid. Jesus did it for me. Now, if we are in this mind, this uncertainty, it means that we change from day to day, back and forth and back and forth. That's what to and fro means. Back and forth and back and forth, and you change your mind, you're healed, you're not healed, maybe you're healed, hopefully you'll be healed. And it's back and forth because you're building it up on uncertainty. We're not built up on uncertainty, we're built up on Jesus. That means even if it look bad, feel bad, sound bad, and it keeps getting worse, Jesus still promised. That means even if they say no, refuse to move, and block your way, Jesus still promised. That means if they don't want to agree, disagree, and say you're a liar, Jesus still promised. The promise is the blessing of God. They're yea, and they're amen. Jesus, he still. And because you're under the promise, because Jesus promised not just today, but he promised that it was already satisfied. You mean to tell me that in 2000, your 2017 issues had already been satisfied? You mean to tell me that before you ever got here, Jesus already knew what he was going to do? So all you got to do then is then hold on to your integrity and remember the same Jesus kept you all this time. How would you begin to try to figure it out now? You've never figured it out. But Jesus kept you anyhow. You never knew exactly how it came together, but somehow all things work together for the good. He just kept you anyhow. You never really had a plan. Somehow Jesus made a way for you. He did it anyhow. So now you're at this place and you got this wall and you're in front of this situation. What should we say to these things? The same Jesus. The same Jesus. If you know, that's been our biggest division. I'm not talking about in this building, I mean in the world. That the world is divided on simply this: who Jesus is. The whole thing. If you were to dissect it down, if you would get down to the root of it, the whole thing can be divided on who do men say that I am? Who do you think that Jesus is? And so then we become then divided because sometimes we think he's one thing and then other days he's another thing. One day he's a healer and then another day we're built up on uncertainty. But instead of us allowing uncertainty to rule us, what if you could realize when you're looking at the wrong thing and set up the wrong way and in the wrong mind? I'm just asking you to take a look at this with me because you got to admit sometimes you ain't saying the right stuff. Sometimes you're not doing the right stuff. And the stuff you're doing is the stuff that you didn't even want to do. The good that you would, that you do not. But the thing that you would not, that you do. That when you would do good, oh, you heard it before, evil is always present. Therefore, my flesh is a servant to the law of sin. that it messes me up, because naturally it'll make me want to live in uncertainty.
That's right. That's right.
It seeks worry and longs for it. Don't mind trouble, because it feels like that it can't live in anything other than trouble. And so if there is no trouble, it looks to find it. He said that my flesh is a servant to sin. That means, if I was to say it backwards, that sin is the master of my flesh. I'll say it to you again. He said my flesh is a servant of sin. It serves what? Its master. Sin is the master of your flesh. So that your flesh is made up not to follow Jesus. It's made up to serve sin. That's why to follow Jesus, the first thing you got to do is deny what your flesh already wants to do.
That's right.
It's built up, it's made up the wrong way. It's made up of corruptible. It's marred, it got problems, it got issues. So Paul said, no matter how much I serve Jesus and love Jesus, I have to acknowledge that my flesh has issues. Because if I don't acknowledge it, I'll keep on making excuses for my issues, and I won't put on the whole Jesus. I'll keep making provisions for my flesh. I want to acknowledge the fact that I got issues, and so now my issues ain't real issues. I just got little stuff and Jesus. But the problem is, the little stuff is what's messing you up. A little leaven leavens the whole loaf. All it takes is a little bit to mess you up. And so we have allowed the little stuff that we call it. I'm not saying it's really little, that's just how you think of it. Your stuff is little stuff. You got little stuff, but your main stuff is loving Jesus. But how do you decide what's the main stuff and what's the little stuff? Jesus said you can base it on proportions. He said, out the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. You can base it on proportion. He said that whenever you full of something, you ain't going to be able to help yourself. It's going to come out in your conversation. So when you full of worry, worry is how you talk. When you full of trouble, trouble is how you talk. When you full of doubt, doubt is how you talk. But when you full of Jesus, that's how you talk. And so no one has to condemn you, no one has to find you. I'm trying to get you to take some of these markers so you'll understand when you need to get a hold of yourself. When you need to get your integrity back in Jesus. When you need to get out of your flesh. Paul said, oh wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I know I got some problems in me. And I'm tired of making excuses for me. Because Jesus still satisfies me. And what's been the biggest hindrance to us is that we have one by one learned how to make excuse, instead of one by one getting out of excuse and getting into Jesus. And so whenever it is that one of these things has you, binds you, troubles you, you have a good reason why it is you should be how you are. That's what excuse is. It's a good reason. And so you have in your mind what is a good reason why it is that you should be sad, why you should be troubled, why you should be worried, why you should be in a bad place, why you should be in a worried mind. You got a good reason why you deserve to be in the state you're in. That's an excuse. And so of course you worry. Look at what the doctor said. Of course you troubled. Look at all this trouble around you in your life. Of course you uneasy. Look at all the uncertainty you're dealing with. And so because that's what you have, and that's what you meditate on, and that's what you live in, that's how you talk. One minute you're happy, the next minute you're a wreck. I mean, nobody knows which way to go. And so what happens, it changes based on whatever's in the world, whatever uncertainty. See that right now, you'll say, I got the joy of Jesus, but then let the wrong thing happen. Let the storm come too strong. God forbid, let somebody forget how holy you are and talk to you in a way that is undeserving. And all of a sudden you move from what you said was joy to a place of uncertainty. But if you ever steady yourself, if you ever get yourself steady in Jesus, then you no longer will be moving into uncertainty after uncertainty. All right, Job chapter number 1, the end of Job chapter 1:1. The Bible said after Job got all his bad news, you remember that? He got all his bad news. Job got all his bad news. And then the Bible said he shaved his head, he rent his clothes, he fell down and began to worship and said, naked came out of my mother's womb. Naked I shall return. The Lord hath given and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job said, I'm going to end it like this. I had some stuff, I lost some stuff. Jesus still satisfied me. I had good days, I had bad days. Jesus always covers me. And right there, beginning of Job chapter number 2, the Bible said, listen to what happened. And said, Satan showed back up. Oh my Jesus. This is already, now he showed up in chapter 1. If you remember again, he showed up again the same way in chapter 2. The Bible said the Son of God presented himself before the Lord, and then Satan also presented himself before the Lord with him. And then the Lord asked Satan, why is it that you're here? And he said, I come and go in and out as I please. He said, I come and go, move about in these people as I please. They have no control over me. And then in verse number 3, the Bible said the Lord responded back to him and said, have you tried my servant Job? There is none like him in all the earth. He's a perfect and upright man. He escheweth evil and clings to that which is good. And in all that he maintains his integrity. He said no matter what you put him through, he refuses to change his mind about who I am in his life. And the Bible said that then after a conversation with Satan, then he released Job over to him, said you can trouble him, but don't take his life. And immediately he was stricken with boils and spores. And the scripture said it was from the sole of his feet to his crown, all over his body. That Job instantly went into mourning. The Bible said he went into sackcloth and ashes. And then Job's wife came to him. Job 2 verse number 9. His wife came to him and said, Job, dost thou still retain thine integrity? Is Jesus still the same when stuff around you is so uncertain? Is Jesus still the same when you feel bad? If Jesus still the same when your friends are few? Is Jesus still the same when nobody knows how to love you right? Is Jesus still the same when you're going through some issues? She said, Job, you still talking that Jesus talk? Give up. Curse your God and die. Job then responded to her and said, woman, you talk foolishly. You don't know who my God is. And the Bible said in all this, Job refused to sin with his lips. Can you imagine, no matter how bad your trouble gets, that you then would say to your trouble, I refuse to change my mind. Jesus satisfies. Jesus, he will fix it. Jesus already covered it. That we have lived in so much uncertainty that even right now when you hear me say it, it sounds odd. Of course you will. And they'll tell you, everybody has doubt. That's not what I mean. Doubt has to become the abundance before doubt becomes your conversation. See, we like to dance around it and make it smaller than what it is. But doubt has to be greater than your faith before doubt becomes your conversation. Oh, it got real quiet. It has to be your abundance. It has to be the greater portion before then it becomes your conversation. And when Jesus is your greatest portion, I know what it is because you'll talk Jesus all the time. And as soon as something else then becomes greater in your life than your Jesus, that's what you talk about. It takes the greater portion. When your worry becomes greater than your Jesus, you won't talk about Jesus anymore. All you'll talk about is your worry. That thing, everything, everybody will know about it because that's all you'll talk about. You'll rehearse it, you'll rewind it, you'll think about it, you'll meditate on it, you'll make place for it in your heart, and out the abundance of your heart, you'll keep on saying it. And then you'll find, when you keep saying it, what comes with things of the flesh, you'll also find covetous. It means that you think that somebody got what you're supposed to have and somehow you've been slighted. And the church is full of people that believe Jesus somehow has done them wrong. didn't bless them like they deserved, didn't keep them like they should have been kept. Somehow they didn't get what they were supposed to get. And so the prayer, when it's built in uncertainty, you start yelling and crying out, you know, Jesus, do it for me. Because he owe you, right? Jesus, do it for me. Because you've been so upright and forthcoming and you've been a righteous standard. But that's not really what happened. We're not built up that way. He doesn't do it for you because you deserve it. It's his grace. It's because he loves you so. So then when Paul is making demands unto Jesus, Jesus removed the thorn thrice. The Bible said he called upon the Lord to remove it. Jesus said, my grace is sufficient. And my strength is made perfect in your weakness. I don't move that way. I move according to grace. You don't deserve any of it. But Jesus, he loves you. His grace still satisfies. The grace does not move on your behest. That means you cannot conjure grace. This is not magic. It doesn't move like that. I said it doesn't work that way. And so because it takes faith to tap into grace, many times when you're moved in uncertainty, you want grace to work like magic, and it's not magic. It's how somehow Jesus keeps finding a way to satisfy you in a way you don't deserve. To save you when you should have been lost. To heal you when you should have been dead. To preserve you when you should have lost your mind. Somehow he keeps making a way over and over again. He keeps on blessing you. His grace is sufficient. Oh, being reminded gets his integrity back and said, as good as Jesus is. You think a bad doctor visit about to change my mind? As good as Jesus is to me. You think a couple people lying on me is going to change my mind? As good as my God is to me. That I'll never turn my back on him because he's been consistently good. How long have you been running for Jesus? I know you say a long time, but how long is a long time? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, almost your whole life. And how many times has he failed you?
Never.
In all those years, how many of those years didn't he keep you?
Always.
How many of those years didn't he preserve your life? How many of those years didn't he restore your soul? He's a good shepherd. And day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, Jesus keeps on satisfying. And all I'm trying to tell you is the same Jesus kept you yesterday is the same Jesus keeping you right now. And I don't know what Monday looks like, but Jesus already paid the price. His satisfaction is already promised. But there is two you. There is the first Adam, which is the natural you, which is what you wake up in, which allows you to be whoever you are. Is everything that you received from generations long before you. This pile of stuff, that's the natural you. When you wake up in that, you wake up in a mess. You already got pre-worry, pre-stress, and all kind of other. I mean, before you ever even got diagnosed, you were born with all kind of preconditions. Oh, Jesus. I mean, you had stuff already in you, setting you up to mess you up. And then you met Jesus. And when you met Jesus, you found out that even though there was some bad stuff in you, and grandmama gave you some bad blood, and you were dealing with some issues in the flesh, and you act like daddy in a certain way, all these things, even though you got that problem, when you met Jesus, you found out the blood satisfied, grace satisfied. And it met your condition. And then, because Jesus made a way for you to escape, you can now declare things I used to do. Remember how you thought it had you because it had everybody else? You can say, I don't do them no more. Places I used to go. The blood satisfied that condition.
Thank you, Jesus.
They used to say all y'all was messed up like that, but then you met Jesus. They used to say none of y'all could be set free, but then you met Jesus. They used to say all y'all was crazy, but then you met Jesus. And he made a difference in your life. And that same Jesus, all this trouble, all this worry, all this angst, all this anxiety, all it is doing is trying to see if you will declare that same Jesus.
Right.
That's the first question. She said, "Do you still talking about Jesus, good?" The Bible said the flesh fell from his bones. You talking about getting sick and losing weight. He wasn't losing weight. He was losing actual flesh. His disease was not only boils, but the boils were eating into his skin. He was literally falling apart. And she said, "Job, enough's enough. I'm tired of watching you fall apart. And you acting like somehow you're some kind of holy, righteous man." She said, "You might as well give up." And sometimes when things don't move like you want to move, you would think after chapter number 1 that not only was Satan leave Job alone, but you would think that the Lord would not use Job as an example. I say this because chapter number 1, those of you who read the Bible, he lost everything. At least he thought he did. He lost everything. He said the houses, the tents, they all gone. The children, they all gone. Got the camels, they all gone. Everything. Said, "Job, everything you have is gone." Finally, they came and gave him some. They said, "Job, everything you have is gone." You would think that would mean that at that point, that not only would the Lord say, but Satan would also, we should try somebody else. But then Satan shows back up. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. Again, threw it out to people. Still wasn't with Job. And so the person he tries is not the other people. He tried Job. The Bible said the Lord spoke and said, "There's none like him in the earth." And so Job shows up by himself, trusted in Jesus, and that's who the devil was after. Job showed up by himself, believing that his God had authority over his life, and that's who the enemy was after. And then the enemy was after him. He said, "Look, anybody can handle losing all that stuff." Listen to how ridiculous it sounds. The Satan said, "Anybody." I mean, you know, Job just may not be built up on stuff. I mean, he lost some families and stuff, so what? Anybody can handle that, but if you attack his flesh, if you attack his body, what I'm asking is why the continual, surmounted, increased attack on Job? Why is that? Why is the attack increased on Job in that way? Number 1, you don't have to attack someone you already got a hold of. Number 2, people who got Jesus can handle some stuff. In order for Jesus to be glorified, people who got him got to be able to handle uncertainty because they're with him. What I'm saying to you is that Jesus never put it on Job. Here's what he said: Job can handle it. Oh, Jesus, so quiet right now. He said, "Job is with me for real. He'll hold on to his integrity. He can handle it." Said, "Well, who we gonna attack?" I tell you what, try Job. You think you can just do whatever you want to do and toss anybody to it? Why don't you try my servant Job? He's built up different. He got a whole different understanding. He got a different mind. Because Job had a different relationship with Jesus. And so here's the thing about Job. The Bible said Job was rich. I mean, he was already doing good. And so the first thing the enemy said is, anybody who's doing good, they'll praise you. Of course they talk good. They got stuff good to talk about. Said you didn't bless Job entirely. But let it not look like a blessing on the outside. Job will curse you to your face. Let it not look like he's blessed on the outside. Job will forget how good you've been to him. Oh, Jesus. I wonder if there's anyone like that. Sometimes when things don't look like they're going right on the outside, you'll forget how good Jesus has been to you. I mean, you can have 6 good days and 1 bad day, and you'll fall straight off into a depression. But why would you fall straight into praise? Sometimes you just forget. And you need to remember that you're built up different. And Jesus used the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. It don't make any sense, but he just keeps on blessing you. He kept you from danger, seen and unseen, day after day, door after door, time after time. Jesus is good to you. Don't make any sense. Don't know why he chose you. Don't know why he loved you so. But Jesus is real in your life.
Yes, he is.
That when Job shows up, he shows up with a different understanding. He shows up with understanding that no matter what goes on in the temporary, I've already received eternally the best gift. Amen. That Jesus is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yes, he is.
That he says, what Paul says through experience, he said, I learned how to abound and how to be abased. I know how to be hungry and how to be full. He said, Jesus good to me.
Yes, he is.
He said, I know how to do all things through Christ who strengthened me. He said, all I got to do is stay under this cover. I'm already got instructions that he's already satisfied it. That he's already answered my need. He's already met the call. And that we should, at some point in time, when we begin to evaluate, when we begin to allow judgment to begin at the house of God, when you look at yourself and realize that maybe your integrity is not what it should be, what do you do? When you look and see the you that you living in is not the you that Jesus called you to be, what do you do? Oh, I know I'm talking real now. When you think about what you've been doing and how good Jesus has been and it bothers you, then what do you do? When you start shaking your head and saying, no, this don't match up, Jesus been too good to me. He brought me too far. He kept me too long. He blessed me too much. Then what do you do? What do you do when you realize it's not Jesus that's messed up? It's you that's messed up. What do you do? It's not that he ain't been keeping you right, it's just you ain't been talking right. What do you do? How do you get a hold of yourself? And if you don't do anything, that means that you still haven't gotten a hold of yourself. My question is, what do you do when you find out you're doing more complaining than glory? Job said, I lost everything, but my God is still good. You ain't gonna make me change my mind. But my question is, what do you do? How do you ever get back from it? When is the last time you repented for it? When is the last time you called yourself and said, no, not this time. Not this time. Not when I know who Jesus is. Not after what he did last time. And you said last time when you were sick before, Jesus, you healed me. Jesus healed you. I'm never going to do it like this. I'm never going to do that. I spent all that time crying and complaining and you still worked it out for me. And then he healed you another 100 times. And here we find ourselves here. After you've been healed over 100 times and still you find a reason to cry and complain. You said last time, I'm going to count it all joy. I'm going to give him glory from the beginning because I know he's going to work it out. Even when it is that you already gave up. When you already gave up, that actually came out in your testimony. I mean, the fact that, like sometimes we say we were close to giving up, I would have fainted, I would have gave up. What about when you already played, say, that's it, I'm done, I can't. Never happened to you. I mean, you already gave up, said this is too hard, this is too much, I cannot make it through this, and you gave up, but Jesus wouldn't let you go. Also, nobody knows what I'm talking about. What happened when you already gave up in your mind? You already fainted. But Jesus wouldn't let you go.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
What happened all the time when you were going through complaining and worrying and stressing and Jesus just suffered along with you?
Oh, thank you, Jesus.
I mean, all the time you wouldn't pray, you wouldn't think of, he just suffered along with you. All the time you wouldn't say, thank you, Jesus, I know it's already done. He suffered along with you. And can I tell you how good he is? He did it for me anyhow. Healed me anyhow. Blessed me anyhow. Kept me anyhow. And then I said, I believe the same thing you said, Jesus, if you give me one more chance. Oh, that's what we're standing in today. Another chance. Jesus, if you give me one more chance. I know I messed up last time. But if you give me one more chance.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you,
David said, I was glad when they said to me, let us go into the house of the Lord. He ain't talking about because he get to go all the time. He talking about because this is another chance for him. He said, if you let me back in one more time, if you give me one more chance, I'm going to do this time what I couldn't do last time. This time I'm going to hold on to my integrity. I'm going to do this time what I messed up in last time.
Thank you, Jesus.
This time I'm going to bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
That because we easily get swept up, caught up, and messed up, that we then start taking stuff that is not real and then make it real. What I'm saying is that just like Mars Hill, sometimes we just get way too superstitious. What are you saying? I'll clarify. I mean, sometimes you want something fortunate to happen, something lucky to happen. You want something you deem that's magical to happen. You know, you want one of those magical hits, lucky lottery number type things. You want something that is not built on faith to happen, to make what should happen through faith happen.
Right.
You want the doctor to magically fix something that only Jesus can heal. Oh, Jesus. Rough water right here. Stay with me. It's easy to get displaced from faith and moved into something more superstitious. 2 Corinthians chapter number 11, Paul says, he said, I fear lest, just like the serpent beguiled Eve in the wilderness, you'll be moved through the subtlety of your minds to another Jesus. He said someone might come preach to you another Jesus, and then he said when they preach to you this other Jesus, and you might also then receive another spirit and another gospel. And he says, my fear is this: you might bear it, you might allow it.
That's right.
As good as Jesus is to you, you might actually be so confused in your mind you'll accept a substitute. A Jesus that don't got joy, a Jesus that don't walk in love, a Jesus that don't operate in grace. You might accept a substitute and then listen to this, live with it. Oh, Jesus. And I'm scared you might start even preaching over your own self and telling yourself somehow there's this other Jesus, this other thing you can live in, this other gospel, this other spirit that is not the real Jesus, but you'll start saying it's like Jesus. And he said you might just live, you know, you might be messed up, but that's not the messed up part. He said the messed up part is you might just bear it, you might just live with it. How long you gonna live with being messed up? He said you might just learn to accept it. Say, oh, I got Jesus and I got misery and I'm just gonna bear it. Oh, Jesus. Now you're gonna act like you don't know what I'm talking about, but I know a whole lot of saved, depressed people. And they just bear it. You know how you going through something? I know a whole lot of people, and every time I see them, they going through something.
That's right.
And they just bear it. But that's not what we're called to do. The Bible said that what Jesus does is he makes a way for you to escape, that you might bear it. That means that you will have him and he will have it. As long as you got it, all you're saying is Jesus cannot handle it. But as soon as you give it to Jesus, now you can say, Jesus got me, I'm not worried about it. As soon as you give it to Jesus, you can say, Jesus, he's already satisfied. The question is not if he's satisfied, the question is when do you receive it? The question is not if he's done it, the question is when you say he has done it.
Already done.
The question is not if he's finished it, he's already finished it. The question is when you receive it. It's finished.
That's right.
The worst thing is that, and Jesus said it, he says, as he wept over Jerusalem, if only thou knew today, right now, the things that belong unto thy peace. Jesus wept over the city only because they didn't know how good it is to receive him in their living. Because they were so busy, caught up with whatever they were caught up in, they just didn't know. Jesus said, I love you so much. I got all these things I want to give you. And then he said, if only you knew how much I loved you. Then he said, there won't be one stone left upon the other. Listen to this. This is not a curse. This is a reality. He said, your house is left unto you desolate until that day when you say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. He said, you're going to have all kind of trouble until you get satisfied with Jesus. Everything going to look like it's falling apart until you say, Jesus is good to me. He said, until you can accept that he's the one who loves you best, you're going to live in a state of uncertainty. And it's just going to keep on going and going and going. Let us hold fast our profession of faith. Hebrews 10:23. Nothing wavering. For he is faithful, he that promised. That all we got to do is declare the same Jesus and then stand on him, because Jesus doesn't fail. I don't got to speak for the world. He hasn't failed me yet. Jesus doesn't fail. That's why the enemy trying to get you all messed up, because you are walking, talking, living witness that Jesus satisfies, that his grace is sufficient, that you are a living testimony that is greater is he that's in you than he that is in the world. Just like Job, the devil tried to kill you, but Jesus somehow kept you. He tried to destroy you, but Jesus keeps on blessing you. That he bless you over and over and over and over again. The problem is that sometimes you see yourself blessed so rarely. It's such an uncommon feeling for you that you mostly live in uncertainty. I'm not trying to say that you're all messed up. I'm just trying to say that because Jesus is the most high God, you got to get better in your living. All I'm saying is he deserves better than this. That you have an understanding that may be a little bit off because you think that you can give him anything. And that's true. You can offer him anything, but he does not have to accept anything. So in Revelation he said, I got something against you because you left your first love, because you tried to give me stuff but you didn't want to give it to me the right way. And so just because you tried to give it to him don't mean he got to accept it. And so now you got a living that you want Jesus to be your first when it comes to him giving, but he's your last when it comes to your living. And so he said, I got a problem with that. I got an issue with it because you say you love me, but you don't act like it. That he's not just supplying your needs, he supplies all your needs. The worry, the trouble, the fear, it's all real, it's all not made up. So we have the benefit of being real. I mean, it's real stuff. You got real world, you live in the real world, and you got real problems. However, until you change your mind about who Jesus is in the world, you always gonna be in trouble. You always gonna be worried. And while you're crying and worrying, guess what you're doing? You're losing time. And so, had you known already in the beginning that Jesus already worked it out, you could have counted all joy. You could have said, thank you, Jesus, from the beginning. Paul said, let me get up off this ground and quit crying and start praising Jesus. Let me stop worrying and give Jesus some glory. Let me leave this thing behind me and give Jesus the praise. Be ye steadfast and unmovable, always abound unto the work in the Lord. knowing that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. Then as long as you understand how good Jesus has blessed you, I guess this is the thing. I'm finished. Here's the real issue. People act brand new when they go through something.
Yeah.
And they forget that Jesus has been loading you down with benefits.
Come on now.
I mean, you all loaded up, you shouting around, dancing, now you got one little thing.
One.
And it takes over your whole understanding. Nobody ever thought you lived this long. And here you are still alive. Can I tell you how impressive it is? Even you didn't believe it. Oh, Jesus. And here you are still alive. He done some stuff you couldn't even imagine. The doctors gave up, you gave up, but Jesus said not so. And he keeps on blessing. That sometimes the best thing you can do is then understand that you are limited and that you get tired, you're fallible, because I believe that we got to come to an understanding of what we're supposed to do when we're all messed up. Because if you keep acting like you're never messed up, you never then get fixed up. When the foundation be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? You need to know what to do when everything's falling apart. What to do when bad news on top of bad news. You got to understand how to keep this integrity. So just like Job, you can say, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. But Jesus is still good to me. So you might boldly say, the Lord is my helper. And I shall not fear what man shall do to me. The Bible said, understanding who he is, we can come boldly to the throne of grace, that we might obtain mercy and find grace to help in our time of need. That's what you do when you don't know what you're going to do next. You don't know what you're going to do Monday, stop right here on Sunday. Stop right here, right where you're at, and throw yourself boldly at the throne of grace and say, Jesus, I need you. And he will give you grace to help in your time of need. Has anybody ever tried Jesus? You didn't make it this far because you're the fastest, because you're the most cunning, because you're the smartest. Sometimes it's just because you know how to fall. You know where to break down at. You know where to fall to pieces at. And every time you do, it's in the arms of Jesus. When you fall in the arms of Jesus, we got this thing he does, because we got some raggedy stories along the way. But Jesus just keeps on keeping you. The Bible said a just man falls 7 times, but every time he gets back up again. Somehow he just keeps on picking you up. I'm not the best put together, I'm just the best kept. Oh, Jesus. I got all kinds of issues and problems, but Jesus keeps on keeping me. His grace is sufficient. That somehow every time you fall apart, he refused to let you go. That's why every time somebody got something, you can identify with it, because you done did a whole lot of something. As soon as they say backslide, you say, amen, I know something about that. Unforgiving, you say, amen, got me too. Not loving, amen, I know that was me.
Come on, amen.
But through it all, Jesus just kept you. In your raggedness, he kept you. In your unforgiving state, he kept you. In your backsliding state, he kept you. I believe this to be true. I did not really understand the grace of Jesus while I thought I was living in righteousness. That's not how I found out about him. I found out about the grace of Jesus when I understood without a shadow of a doubt I didn't deserve it.
That's right.
That the grace that he gave me wasn't based on anything about me. And that's when I knew how much he loved me. You know, you come to a couple services, pray a couple prayers, put in a couple dollars, you start thinking somebody owe you something. Oh, but when you're raggedy, your living's all messed up. Lying out of both shoes and living wrong and treating people wrong. And then you find yourself in need and go calling on Jesus. And Jesus still satisfies. Oh, somebody ought to give him praise. You know it was Jesus. You in a situation you put yourself in doing stuff you made up in your own imagination, living in a way that's contrary from the will of God, and somehow he kept you anyway. Well, it's going all around you, not a scratch.
Yes.
3 people like you died from something you were living in, but Jesus kept you through. You don't know how good grace has been to you.
Hey, what? Hey.
The same sin that killed them, Jesus kept you through.
Hey.
How good is your God?
Hey. Right. That's right. That's right.
How about the stuff you did even when you knew better? Oh, I'm done with you now. You knew you shouldn't do it, but with forethought and planning, did it anyway. And then had the nerve to say, Jesus, I need you. And he refused to leave you alone. I mean, right then, all right, he should have turned his back on me. Even the apostle said, he said, you bring the cross to an open shame.
Open shame.
I'd like to say that's somebody else, but I believe we're all guilty.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And so if you did bad, all I'm saying is time to do better.
That's right. That's right.
That was not the best you could do. Paul does not let his story end in him just crying and begging for Jesus. Some stuff, obviously, is simply reciprocity.
That's right.
God does not mock whatever man sow. That should also reap. You act like somehow you don't know why some of this stuff happened, but some of this stuff is just you reaping what you sow.
That's right. That's right.
Now that, he says, is the rule of God. However, he did not factor in that particular verse, grace. So what kept you, even after you were reaping what you were sowing, was Jesus' grace covering. You planted it, and you should have died in it, but Jesus kept you through it.
That's right. That's right.
You going crazy now because they talking about you, but you planted it. But Jesus covered you that you might be able to bear it.
That's right.
All the stuff you say, oh, they're doing that, they should do this and do that. And when they was struggling with their sickness and their trouble, you had all kind of stuff about what they should be doing and how they should be living. And you shout all around them how good Jesus is. But now it's your stuff and your sickness and your trouble. And the question is, how good is Jesus to you?
That's right.
When is your shout gonna break out? When is your praise gonna be elevated? When are you gonna give Jesus some glory?
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
It is easy when it's somebody else, but when you gotta trust in Jesus for yourself.
Thank you, Jesus. Yes.
Job said, you don't understand how good he's already been to me. It's a wonder that when it's time to talk about something they presently are living in, they always go back to something he's already done. They always go back to some kind of experience they already had with him. He said, you don't know what he's already done for me. You don't know how he already kept me.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesus.
I'm in love with Jesus.
Thank you. Thank you.
And in that Job, and in that Paul, the Bible said, became a fool in glory.
Thank you. Hallelujah.
Instead of him speaking about Jesus foolishly, he changed his situation and then became a fool in glory. He glorified Jesus in a way that did not match up his circumstances. People who sick shouldn't praise him like this. People who tired shouldn't give him glory like this. People who got trouble should not lift him up like this. But when you know he's worthy, oh, you'll do it anyhow. Let's go ahead and be anointed here today.